few hours later, in a shop, an attendant recommended a nourishing tonic called Orchid Heart to a mother and her daughter. This tonic helps stabilize health when it reaches 0.8 and is specifically made for female martial artists. It costs a whopping $30,000, but the mother and daughter didn't hesitate to buy it and left happily. Lu Sheng, observing this, realized that even if his parents worked non-stop, they could only afford a $3,000 tonic at best. He also noted that strong martial artists could earn a lot and provide for their needs. But in his sister's case, Wu Shang took from their meager resources, even though she was a genius with the potential to change her future. Lu Sheng, on the other hand, couldn't accept his average abilities, but also didn't try to change his fate. He spent his days aimlessly until one day, watching two students discussing their PC game, he had a moment of realization. He saw himself in them, trapped like a fish in a small tank, longing for something bigger, like the vast ocean, but too afraid to leave the comfort of his tank. That all changed when Lu Sheng decided to break free. Gazing at the sky, he promised himself never to make a wrong choice again. Suddenly, all his past experiences and memories flooded back in the one decisive moment. Determined to grow stronger, he advanced along his path. Later, while in a dream, Lu Sheng was attacked by a red-eyed zombie. He blocked the blow with his left arm and delivered a powerful punch with his right. The zombie fell, and Lu Sheng realized it was a martial artist turned zombie who could still fight. Lu Sheng then set out toward Base 1359, fighting and easily defeating several zombies along the way. As he reached the base, he saw its massive wall, which reminded him of something like Attack on Titan. He climbed up the cracked wall, noticing how thick it was, at least 20 meters. He wondered what kind of battle could have destroyed such a place, especially if it had been protected by people stronger than those in his world. He soon spotted the base command center, where an old zombie with glowing eyes and a sword sat. The creature released a shockwave that knocked Lu Sheng to the ground. Realizing he wasn't strong enough to fight it yet, he decided to explore further. Eventually, he encountered a strange object in a room. When he touched it, light poured out, revealing a holographic woman with long yellow hair and sleek clothing. "Welcome, user of Tanang technology," the hologram said. Lu Sheng's eyes widened in shock as he realized it spoke the same language as him. In the futuristic world of Base 1359, hologram Ellie, a product of Tanhang Technologies and an AI of the 16th generation, controls the network server management. One day, Lu Sheng, our protagonist, asks Ellie for the latest updates. She instantly pulls up multiple news notifications, revealing a series of events that shape this world. In the year 11,024, on June 21st, the 58th spacecraft was launched in search of intelligent life, heading toward the Lyra galaxy. Fast forward to July 24th of the same year, Base 105 has fallen. Then on September 24th, Lieutenant General Sun King became a 10-star realm martial artist, ranked number 472 in the Martial Alliance. Soon after, several more bases, including 100, 14, 838, and 1022, fell in quick succession, prompting the 8th Division to search for survivors. On November 19th, the World Martial Alliance planned to hold their 24th Grandmaster Conference to discuss future strategies. Amid all this chaos, Lu Sheng wonders if the rank system he dreams of mirrors reality. This possibility terrifies him as he watches a window pop up, showing terrifying monsters descending from the sky, threatening to conquer the world. Despite humanity's advanced technology and martial prowess, they couldn't fend off the monsters. In a desperate attempt, they sent exploration teams into space, hoping to find a new home. But so far, no one has returned. Shaken, Lu Sheng asks Ellie to show him the world's history. As the records scroll across the screen, he is stunned to realize that everything happening here will occur in his world 10,000 years in the future. Curious, he asks if there are any records of him in this world. Multiple windows pop up, and he sees his own profile. He lived as a civilian for only 28 years. Intrigued, Lu Sheng asks for more details, but the system denies access, requesting a blood sample. As he wonders how to give the sample, Ellie steps forward and gently pricks his finger, much to his surprise. She collects the sample and begins analyzing it, but suddenly, Ellie glitches and a notification appears. Project Fire C initiated. Lu Sheng's records are now different. He sees that he graduated top of his class, enrolled in martial arts university, served in the military, and died at age 37 during the Southern War without any significant contributions. Realizing that the future changes every time he grows stronger, Lu Sheng feels unsatisfied. He knows he must become the strongest martial artist in the world to change the fate of humanity. As this thought races through his mind, his body glitches and flames surround him, signaling the beginning of something extraordinary. The next morning, Lu Sheng was in the dining room when his mother noticed something unusual. He wasn't wearing his school uniform. Curious, she asked if he didn't have classes today. Calmly, Lu Sheng replied that his teacher had allowed him to study from home, sparking confusion from both his mother and sister, as they had never heard of such an arrangement. After finishing his meal, Lu Sheng told his mother that he would be returning to his room to train. His sister, observing the sudden change in her brother, realized he wasn't the fool she once knew. Lu Sheng had become more mysterious. Once in his room, Lu Sheng received a call from his friend Jiang, who informed him that his scholarship money had been released. Jiang invited him to come to school to collect it, but Lu Sheng, focused on his goals, declined, stating he had no time to waste. He ended the call and immediately returned to his training, sitting in a lotus position, determined to grow stronger and change his future. He was resolute in his desire to showcase his talents to the world when he reached his peak. Later, Lu Sheng visited Base 1359 and asked Ellie to pull up all available cultivation methods, reflections, and martial arts notes that he could access. Ellie complied, and within seconds, 465,751 results appeared on the screen. Overwhelmed by the volume, Lu Sheng asked Ellie to filter out the most valuable techniques suitable for rank 1 martial artists. Ellie quickly refined the search, leaving only 3 methods. The first was the Stellar Body Refining Technique, created by Wang Qi, a rank 2 powerhouse from the World Martial Alliance. The second was the Natural Breathing Technique, developed by Yang Yoshio, another rank 2 martial artist from the same alliance. The final method was the Crystal Visualization Technique, crafted by Duan Ying, also a rank 2 powerhouse. These techniques were part of Project Fireseed, and in Lu Sheng's current world, the highest known martial rank was rank 9. However, 10,000 years into the future, humanity had reached rank 11. Grateful for the preserved knowledge, Lu Sheng began practicing the Stellar Body Refining Technique. This method transformed his blood, cells, and body from the inside out, making him unimaginably strong. His defense skyrocketed as his body evolved. After completing this phase of the training, Lu Sheng was drenched in sweat and noticed that the effects of this technique were thousands of times stronger than what he had previously practiced. Without wasting any time, Lu Sheng moved on to the second technique, the Fire Breathing Technique. As he mastered it, flames surrounded his body, and when he opened his eyes, he breathed like a dragon. His body boiled with energy, and his strength reached new heights. Now, only one technique remained, the Crystal Visualization Technique. Sitting once again in the lotus position, Lu Sheng dove into meditation. In his mind, he saw his unconscious body floating. Confused by the intricacies of the technique, Lu Sheng tried to approach the unconscious figure, even kicking it in frustration. Still perplexed, he decided to take his time with this method, figuring it out gradually. When Lu Sheng woke from his meditation, he felt utterly exhausted, unsure of what had happened while he was asleep. Looking down at his arms, he realized that impurities from his body had forced their way out as sweat, a result of the powerful techniques he had learned. Feeling refreshed, Lu Sheng decided to take a bath. As he prepared to retrieve his scholarship money, he had an idea: to create a potent elixir based on a tonic he had encountered in his dream. This elixir wouldn't just boost a person's abilities, it had the potential to revolutionize the pharmaceutical industry and alter the trajectory of the entire world. A few hours later, at Bei High School, John handed Lu Sheng the scholarship ATM card, reminding him to give a heads up the next time he decided to skip school. As Lu Sheng accepted the card, he politely apologized. John, understanding yet stern, granted him permission to leave, but advised him to at least attend school once a week. Watching Lu Sheng exit, John couldn't help but notice the drastic improvement in Lu Shang, even though only 2 days had passed. Now with money in hand, Lu Shang could finally create the medicinal concoctions he learned about in his dream. The muscle and blood strengthening decoction and the marrow nourishing pill, perfect for his current health status. The delicate nature of these medicines meant he needed the right environment. With this in mind, Lu Shang decided to find an alchemical lab to rent. However, his search wasn't easy. At one point, a bearded man filled with suspicion angrily denied Lu Shang access to his lab, fearing he might discover their exclusive secret recipes. Slamming the door in his face, the man ordered him to leave. Undeterred, Lu Shang sighed as he looked at the ingredients he had purchased. To his surprise, the card his teacher had given him didn't just contain 30,000, but a whopping 80,000. Realizing this, he decided to buy rudimentary equipment online. Wandering through an alley, Lu Shang stumbled upon a medicinal hall, hidden in this remote area. He never imagined such a place could exist here. Entering the shop, he was greeted by a blonde man, preoccupied with his phone. Lu Shang approached and greeted him, but the blonde man, still engrossed in his device, told Lu Shang to grab what he needed and bring it over for payment. Clarifying that he wasn't there to buy, Lu Shang tried to explain, but the blonde man didn't bother to listen, warning him not to leave without paying, as the shop was under CCTV surveillance. Irritated by the salesman's indifference, Lu Shang slammed the man's hand onto the counter, grabbing his attention. The perverted salesman, startled, finally asked what Lu Shang wanted. Lu Shang inquired if they had a chemical lab available for rent. Seeing an opportunity, the blonde man smirked and offered Lu Shang a business proposal. A short time later, standing in front of the alchemical lab, the blonde man reminded Lu Shang of their agreement, $500 per hour, with a maximum of 3 hours. Before the man could finish explaining, Lu Shang pulled out his card and paid immediately, eager to begin his work. The blonde salesman, thrilled by the payment, wished Lu Shang good luck as he entered the lab. Dressed in a white coat and gloves, Lu Shang began his first attempt at making the tonic. He prepared the ingredients with great care, submerging a mutant green-scaled lizard into a water tube to remove its scales and activate its medicinal properties. He worked meticulously, handling the ingredients with precision, and after a while, he successfully created the muscle and blood-strengthening decoction. He couldn't believe it. He had crafted a tonic from 10,000 years in the future on his very first try. Without hesitation, Lu Shang drank the tonic, eager to test its effects. At first, he felt nothing, and the taste was ordinary. Disappointed, he assumed he had failed. But suddenly, his body shook violently, and he collapsed to his knees in pain. After a few moments, he lay there, gasping for breath, realizing the tonic's astonishing power. Its efficacy was remarkable, instantly filling the vitality void created by his rapid advancements in strength. To his surprise, the tonic even improved his health beyond what was necessary. Despite its potency, it caused no harm to his body. On top of this, the tonic had other unexpected benefits. It increased the density of his skin, shrunk his pores, and even whitened and moisturized his skin. This tonic was the culmination of 10,000 years of accumulated wisdom from the entire martial arts world. However, Lu Shang's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden knock at the door. Opening it, he found the blonde salesman in a panic. The man, looking flustered, warned Lu Shang that his boss had returned and advised him to leave immediately through the back door. Outside the medicinal shop, Lu Shang spotted a striking woman with short brown hair, dressed in seductive green clothes and matching high heels. She twirled a key on her finger, her eyes filled with authority as she prepared to enter the shop, unaware of what had transpired inside the alchemical lab. The owner of the Xing Xing Medicinal Hall, Suzu, was inspecting a box filled with various tonics. As she drank them, disappointment washed over her. The tonics were of such poor quality that they couldn't even be considered real tonics. As she glanced at the television showing a martial artist with a muscular physique, Suzu realized how rapidly the pharmaceutical industry was evolving due to the increasing demand for martial artists. Every day, new and superior medicinal prescriptions were being developed, rendering older ones obsolete. The reason Xing Xing Medicinal Hall had fallen behind the modern pharmaceutical trends was largely due to her family's conservative approach. They still adhered to old methods, as the hall had been selling traditional remedies for over 100 years. However, with their outdated practices, Xinxing was now being outpaced by more progressive pharmaceutical companies. Suzu knew that if she didn't discover a new medicinal prescription soon, the business her father had entrusted to her would collapse. Determined, Suzu decided that if she couldn't create a new product herself, she would collaborate with experienced chemical masters like Mr. Zhang. Just as she turned around with resolve, the blonde man Mafi greeted her. He asked if she had changed her mind about going to the neighboring city, adding that he didn't expect her to return so soon. Suzu, however, ignored him. Mafi, mesmerized by her beauty, blushed and pervertedly smiled, lost in a daydream of Suzu hugging him, and the two living happily ever after. Still lost in his fantasy, Mafi was jolted back to reality when Suzu snapped at him to wake up and demanded to know if he had allowed anyone to use the laboratory. Even though she was visibly angry, Mafi couldn't help but admire her, denying the accusation with a sheepish smile. Suzu, frustrated, covered her forehead and informed Mafi that he would be fired starting tomorrow. She threw his dirty coat into the trash and began cleaning the laboratory herself. As she cleaned, she noticed the remnants of a mutant green-scaled lizard and remembered that the person who had used the lab earlier had activated the lizard's medicinal properties by removing its valuable scales. This was a technique Suzu had never encountered before, and she assumed that whoever did it must be someone with their head stuck in the clouds, trying to invent their own medicinal formula. Despite her skepticism, Suzu felt a pang of empathy, realizing that she too was placing her hopes on something equally unrealistic. As she picked up a broken tube from the floor, she wondered just how many surprises this day would bring. Inspecting the broken tube, she grew curious about the tonic that had been prepared, and driven by curiosity, dipped her finger inside to taste it. Her eyes widened as the scene around her changed in an instant. Meanwhile, Mafi sighed, blaming Lu Sheng for everything that had happened. He thought back to his goddess, Suzu, and wished to see her one last time. His daydream was abruptly interrupted when Suzu came running toward him, calling his name and waving her hand. She confessed her love for him, causing Mafi to blush and cry from sheer happiness. He couldn't believe that Suzu felt the same way about him. As Suzu waved her hand again, Mafi thought it was a sign of her affection, but in reality, she was ordering him to stop. Still caught up in his fantasy, Mafi ran towards her, declaring that he knew she cared for him and that he would stay by her side forever. But Suzu grabbed him by the collar and shook him, demanding to know who had used her laboratory. She let him know that if he could find the person responsible, she would let him keep his job and even double his salary. Feeling dizzy and overwhelmed, Mafi admitted that he had the contact information of the guy who rented the lab. Suzu immediately snatched the phone from him and started scrolling through the contacts. Suzu, now aware of the strengthening effects of the tonic she had tasted, realized it was at least 10 times more potent than the blood-strengthening tonics currently on the market, which sold for around $100. Beyond its incredible strengthening properties, the tonic also had cosmetic benefits, such as whitening and improving the skin. To her surprise, the main ingredients were all common and inexpensive, making the production cost under $5,000. Suzu knew she had stumbled upon a world-class tonic and hurriedly dialed the contact number. On the other side of the city, Lu Sheng was deep into his training, focusing intensely on mastering the stellar body refining technique. As expected of a rank 11 martial arts method, its ability to unlock the potential of the human body was astounding, beyond anything he could comprehend. At this rate, Lu Sheng felt confident that he might truly give rise to a real star within his body. The natural breathing technique he had been practicing in conjunction with the refining technique was equally phenomenal, amplifying the effects of his physical training. Thanks to this combination, Lu Sheng's health status had improved significantly, and the muscle and blood-strengthening decoction he had made earlier was working wonders. With his current physique, 2 portions of the decoction per day would suffice, and he had enough tonic to last 6 days. While he planned to make more soon, Lu Sheng's phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. Answering the call, he heard a woman's voice on the other line. It was Suzu, who introduced herself as the person in charge of Xing Xing Medicinal Hall. She apologized for disturbing him and explained that she had seen the tonic he created. She wanted to collaborate with him to promote the product. Lu Sheng, still focused on his training, told her they could meet in a week and quickly ended the call. However, Suzu was eager to meet him as soon as possible. She grabbed Mafi by the collar once more, shaking him in frustration. She tasked Mafi with finding Lu Sheng within 6 days, offering him a reward of $60,000 if he succeeded. Mafi, excited by the prospect, reminded her to keep her word. But as his excitement faded, confusion set in. Mafi asked Suzu if something bad had happened and informed her that the person who had rented the lab earlier was just a student. Suzu, now even more intrigued, wondered just who this mysterious young man really was.